And welcome to the Open Space Ecology Committee meeting of August 28th, 2024. To make a remote public comment, you may email ae@brisbaneca.org. Join us on brisbaneca.org/osec-zoom. Please use the latest Zoom version, and you know where to find it. The web ID will be 97642950160, and you may use the raised hand feature. And if you'd like to call in, the number is 1-669-900-9128. Use *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Next slide, I have no idea. Open Space and Ecology Committee meeting. Yes, here we are on the 28th day of August. And I would like to ask to call the meeting to order. So we go through and roll call. And we'll start with Mary Rogers. Here. Michelle Salmon.
Here.
Jason Noonan, present. Erin Becker.
Here.
And for the last meeting, after many years of service and leadership and being an awesome person, Glenn Feldman.
Here. But almost not.
But almost not.
Almost not. Absent is Barbara Ebel this evening, who could not make it with us. I would move to, Adrian, consider the request or first? Yeah.
Generally, the chair entertains a motion, doesn't make the motion.
Okay.
But
would anyone want to make a request to attend the meeting remotely under the emergency circumstances of AB 2449?
unneeded.
Unneeded. Okay.
We can move to adoption of the agenda.
Would someone like to move to adopt the agenda for this evening?
I move to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Moved by Mary and seconded by Michelle. All in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
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 Great, so moved. Next, we move on to the announcements and oral communications. Are there any announcements or oral communications?
I have two announcements.
Yes.
One, San Bernardino Mountain Watch is not having the pancake breakfast this year. We will be having a summer solstice mountain festival on the 21st of June in 2025, tentatively scheduled already at the community park. It'll be a big festival, so put it on your calendars now. And we will be having our September plant sale, and that'll be on September 14th. And it'll be the usual hours, but because people will be disappointed that there's no pancakes, we are having a small baking donation table where we're going to have numerous baked goods and people can donate and have a cup of coffee and eat sweets. And sorry, no blackberry syrup, but yeah. And then the other thing is on September 21st, we do have Coastal Cleanup Day, which will come up later in the meeting, but the Sierra Point Yacht Club will be having their land regatta and harbor races and fun and games and food that same day in the afternoon. And if you participate in Coastal Cleanup, you get a ticket for your meal at the regatta, extra special. So please set aside both the 14th for the plant sale and the 21st for the Coastal Cleanup and Sierra Point Yacht Club Regatta. That's it.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, yes, Glenn.
Yeah, this committee and the city council both supported SB 252, the fossil fuel divestment bill for the big pension funds, big state pension funds, for which I think I can safely say that Fossil Free California, the organization that co-sponsored the bill along with Senator Lena Gonzalez, are very grateful. However, yeah, it went down in flames again this year. It was killed in committee, actually. A bunch of poison pill amendments were proposed, and so Gonzalez didn't want the bill to pass if the meat was cut out of it, and so she withdrew it. My understanding is that she's pretty mad and she'll be back next year. So keep an eye out for it. And I know the numbers, so I can always join this committee meeting remotely. So don't be surprised.
We would be delighted Not surprised, delighted.
Glenn, can you remind me the bill number?
SB 252.
Got
It's
it.
called the Fossil Fuel Divestment Bill. And I should have said something earlier. It's been a couple months, but I've been preoccupied.
Adrian, you had shared an email earlier in the week. Would that fit in here, oral communications, or would that come at a different time? The email about the leaf.
Either way, you could share it now if you'd prefer.
Oh, okay. So we received an email from a member of council, and it regarded the use of gasoline leaf blowers, and referred to the fact that the state had passed a statute grandfathering or sunsetting them, rather, and that after January of this year, only electric or non-gasoline would be acceptable. So the same council person, when they met with us earlier this year, made a point which really sat with me, which really landed, which is that considering the reality of what our constituents are having to deal with. And I think this committee has been very effective in the last couple of years and gotten things rolling and gotten things done where they had not been getting as much done. But as a result of that, what we're asking people is, we're going to tell them in the next year or so to change their light bulbs, to angle their lights down, to give up some things that they may have been used to. In terms of we didn't have to go with the actual ordinance with the invasives, but because of some very, very good advice from our staff here, we were able to get this through and to prohibit some of the most toxic things. But some people are going to feel like, oh, my ivy, my English ivy, I like it, or my bamboo, or whatever. And suddenly, I would hate for the people that we serve to feel like we were an enormous bunch of scolds, and that there was yet one more thing that was going to be taken from them or asked from them. And I just feel like the temperature is not right to go after their gas leaf blowers. I just think that given that the state has acted, that they can't be sold here anymore, and these things are going to continue to age and break and not be used anymore, I think the action's been taken, and maybe in 6 months we can educate people a little bit and say, hey, if it's time to replace your leaf blower, think about electric. Well, then again, they'll have to. I just don't want to come at people asking them to give up something else just yet when we haven't actually enacted the dark skies changes. So I would open to comment. Look like Glenn, you wanted to.
Oh, I was just going to say my understanding was that they can't be sold anymore, but their use isn't prohibited, right?
No, it's not, and that's what I just don't feel like the time is right to start telling people they must replace their gas leaf.
You mean just telling people neighbor to neighbor, not, there's no city ordinance on that, is there?
There was in the email was suggesting that we ask for an ordinance.
Oh, I see.
For us, maybe I wasn't clear. The email was saying we should maybe propose an ordinance to outlaw them here. And I know the neighbor on the other side of me would absolutely lose his mind if we told him he had to get rid of his leaf blower.
We've talked about that in this committee going back probably a decade.
Right.
Because people are really annoyed. But we decided not to do it because of the state law.
Right.
And
So-
I think it probably should stay that way. I tend to agree with you that we don't want to hit people with
Okay.
too much at once, although as annoying as they are.
Aaron, did you have a comment also?
I'm with you too.
Okay. Okay.
While I wish they didn't exist, I'm glad the state did at least what it's done, and I also worry about ordinance fatigue right now.
Ordinance fatigue, I like it.
I just wanted to chime in here to say that this item is not on your agenda, so there shouldn't be prolonged discussion
I think we've
about it.
stepped into prolonged, haven't we?
I think fine for you to share what was shared with you.
Oh,
But
can I
We're
make a motion, we
discussing-
table this to subcommittee
I was going to
reports?
say, maybe you're discussing whether you want to agendize it or not.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, that's
Or-
some ideas,
So we,
positive ones.
I think, okay, so agendize it as not doing it or agendize it as to talk about it some more?
I'm thinking that you guys are deciding, do you want to agendize it to talk about it more, or are you just
I think it's done. I think 3 out of 5 think it's done.
Yeah.
It's done. 4 out of 5. Okay, thank you for the, it's ironic that the person suggesting it, their advice to us is what's making me not think we should do this. But I think it's a great idea, but the perfect is the enemy of the good, so we're moving on. Now, for the approval of the minutes, is there a motion? No? Or oral communications? From the public? Are there any oral communications from the public?
I do see that we have some folks joining us online, but we don't have any hands raised.
Oh, CMF did. Hello, CMF, did you want to speak? Yes?
Yes, sorry, it took me a while to find the
All
basic,
good,
but
all good.
I think it's interesting. I'm wondering on the topic of the leaf blowers, if rather than ordinance fatigue, we consider offering rebates for the purchase of an electric replacement. Just today, as I was walking on down Inyo, I had got a face full of the exhaust of one of these things. So it's not. There are a lot of aspects. So we might want to use honey rather than. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Other oral communications? Anyone else wanted to weigh in on that or hopefully a different topic? Since I stepped over the line and talked too much about it already. Any other? No. So I would move that, is there a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting? Anyone to move to?
I will motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Yes, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye, the motion.
Just abstaining.
Abstain, okay. Okay, good. And now we come to the point of new business in front of the committee for our new business. Do I just look down? Okay, so we have the presentation of the 2019 and 2021 community emissions inventories. And is that?
That's going to come primarily from me, but I do want to note that we have Emily Saul from Rincon Consultants, who supports the county RICAPS program that does the inventories for us, is on the line. So she is welcome to step in if I misspeak as I'm going through this, and is available to help address any questions that get too nitty gritty. So before I dive into the new emissions inventories, I felt a little bit of context was needed. So here, sorry, I thought I made that go away. Hide you. So I think you are all aware we have a climate action plan that was adopted in September 2015. Our what you see on the screen here is the 2005 baseline inventory at that time, the 2010 emissions, the forecasted business as usual emissions, where the state target would put us. And I've always found this interesting. Brisbane did not actually set a specific target in there that was different than the state's, and just said, we're going to try to beat the state's 15% below 2005 levels by 2020. And here are the measures. And if we did all of these measures, this is what it would add up to. And what it would add up to would have been over around, I think, 22% reduction. But it didn't clearly state, like, we're going to do all of these things for sure in this time frame, and this is our goal. So that's kind of how that was laid out. This is the 2017 community greenhouse gas inventory. Until we just got these latest inventories in the last couple of months that we've been working through them, we hadn't seen one in a long time. So this was the one we had been operating from for, I think, about 4 years or so. I think we maybe got this in 2020 or maybe even 2019. So we'd been working from this as our emissions inventory for a number of years. Yeah, Glenn.
Is this the one that has our chunk of 101
No.
included?
No, that was one of the first things that I did when I started here and started looking at our emissions inventories. I said, no way we're using this methodology. There are two generally accepted methods of transportation emissions. And all of these versions that you will see today have the what's referred to as the origin destination method. So basically trips that start or end in Brisbane are entirely or partially attributable to our emissions, but those that are through traffic, which includes a long stretch of Highway 101 that people don't, start or stop in Brisbane, those don't count for our emissions. They count for the cities they start or end in. So that still puts transportation VMT at the biggest chunk of our emissions. Previously, when that was included, I think transportation VMT was like 80-something% of our emissions. It was really daunting to look at and try to figure out how we would do anything about.
Acronym definition?
VMT, thank you. Vehicle miles traveled. Please catch me on that because there are a lot of acronyms in greenhouse gas emissions inventory world, if anybody didn't know GHG. So I don't know that I wanted to say a whole lot here besides give you this picture so you kind of had this in your mind, mostly in the transportation sector. And then the blue sections are building emissions, so electricity and natural gas use in buildings, and then purple solid waste is kind of the next biggest chunk, and we have a few sectors that are just really tiny little slivers. Yeah.
So solid waste is shown here as 10%. Do you happen to know whether the emissions from the landfill were actually measured, or are they estimated based on the size of the landfill? And part of the reason I'm asking is that EPA, I think was last year, came out with a new estimate saying that landfill emissions were higher than they had originally thought. I mean, that seems to be, everything is worse than anybody originally thought.
Yeah, that's going to be a theme.
Just wondering.
Yeah, I might ask Emily to jump in here. I believe for the landfills, we actually don't have data on one of them and have never been able to get data, but the other is coming from the Air District as point source data. So most of the Air District point source data is actually in the stationary sources category, but the closed landfill gets kind of pulled out of that and moved over into the solid waste category. And in the newer inventories I'll show you in a couple of minutes, you'll actually see separate landfills and like landfilled waste and alternative daily cover, or ADC as it's called. So that's the stuff that is being generated now and going to landfill versus landfills being the closed landfills that exist inside the jurisdiction. Emily, I don't know if you have any more that you can add on the landfill question.
No, I think you answered that.
Okay.
Oops, sorry, I think I had a delay. I think you answered that accurately. The one of the landfills for which we have data for is coming directly from the Air District from Bachmed. Which one? That is the Sunquest property landfill.
So not Sierra Point, right? Sierra Point is the one we cannot get, and Sunquest is what the Baylands one is named, I believe, is how that's in the records. Okay, so this is kind of the context under which we had been thinking that we, had over 20% reduction as of our 2017 inventory. Yay, beat our goal. And set some new goals in the climate emergency declaration that was adopted in July 2021. So you can see blue of the actual emissions, the state-aligned emissions reduction targets, and then the faster reduction targets that we established in the climate emergency declaration, 66% by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2040. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. My arrow got moved back over to 2045. That's supposed to be there for 2040. Anyhow, so that was kind of based on what we knew from the 2017 inventory. So fast forward to now, and we've got two new inventories, the 2019 and the 2021, and we have a lot of changes actually that have gone into these for a variety of reasons. One being there's a different consultant supporting right caps, and in the intervening period there have been standards and methodologies that have changed. There's a new regional transportation model for vehicle miles traveled that has made an impact. It actually was a much bigger change for other cities because everybody has now moved, or at least everybody in San Mateo County has now moved to the origin destination transportation method that you asked about. Some cities had not done that previously. So they saw a much bigger change in their emissions than we had because we had already made that change a number of years ago. And then there are some new sources that were added. So upstream energy use, methane gas leakage, and electricity transmission losses, the former being a much bigger impact than the latter. And so the consultants have updated our 2005 baseline to match the new methodology for this 2019 and 2021. But not the interim years. So we don't have all of those 2010, 2015, 2017 updated with this new methodology, but we do have a baseline to look back on and now. And so what you see at the bottom here is how that baseline actually changed. So that 19% increase does not mean we've increased our emissions 19%. That's just if we go to this new methodology, our baseline back in 2005 is actually 19% higher than we previously thought it was.
I have a question.
Yeah.
There's something that's really been bothering me a lot in the last couple of months. I've been up and down the peninsula a couple of times, and the new privilege lane on the 101, I think, is dramatically increasing emissions. Because what happens is people get in that lane, that pay for play lane, and they do like 80 miles an hour, and everyone else is in a stop and go mode and longer transit time because the people who are doing 80 then need to slam on their brakes and jump in, and everybody else brakes. And so the other 4 lanes are like gridlock. And it is, I think, dramatically increasing our emissions because it's taking longer to get up the peninsula and down, because of this privilege lane and how it's impacting traffic and traffic flow and people on and off the brake because the traffic doesn't flow right because people are darting in and out of the privilege lane. And I'm really, really concerned about it. And it'll be interesting. I hope they do real-time testing on emissions along the peninsula because, we had 2020 where no one was driving, and then we had 2021 where it slowly increased again, and then 2022. And now we are in 2024 with the privilege lane in full force, and it is a nightmare on the 101 corridor from where that lane starts until after that lane finishes and people sort of adjust themselves coming from South City into Brisbane because the lane stops right after the airport. And I seriously object to these privilege lanes and what it's doing to the whole traffic flow and the emissions. And I would like whoever measures that to actually measure the change that's happening on site with the enactment of the privilege lane. And I think it's penny wise and pound foolish.
Yep, I know this is not anything our staff can deal with, but it is nice to get this on the public record. Add to that, the carpool sticker incentive is also going away, I think this year or early next year. Really? For all cars. So there's no more, get half off whatever in that lane if you have an EV. So they're, taking that incentive away as well.
Yeah, plus currently the carpool for the privilege lane is basically the honor system. You just set your thing to it. There's no one there to check it. So, and you do the math, and it's worth it to take the risk of the ticket because of how much it costs to go in the privilege lane, and you can fake it that you have, 2 passengers, and nobody's checking on that. And it's really an abuse of the public trust and the whole system, and I think it's doing more harm than good.
So noted.
Oh, I have a que- I have a
May
que-
I move
Yes,
along with the presentation?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes. Yes, please. Yes, yeah.
Ah.
Thanks, Adrian.
So our 2021 emissions inventory is shown here. And as I said, it has some additions to it and new methodologies. And this wasn't broken out separately. It was kind of embedded in our building emissions. But the thing that is kind of being lost in this look of the inventory is how dramatically electricity emissions have dropped. And you'll see that a little bit more in the next few slides. But I did want to call that out. We are down to just a tiny fraction of our emissions now coming from the electricity sector, but a growing proportion from VMT. And that's not necessarily because the transportation emissions are growing in absolute terms, but they are growing as an overall percentage as some of the other categories are shrinking, and they are not,
Right.
or not very much. What's that?
I think that methodology kind of presents a false picture, because if that looks like it's increasing, but if it's it's not.
The percentage.
That's right. And the percentage, because the other percentages are shrinking, makes it look like a false picture of progress, of lack of progress in certain areas.
I think the one thing to do here is maybe put the total number on the chart so that you can see it's a percentage of a.
I have a few different ways to slice
okay.
this.
Okay, good.
So
Okay,
you'll
go
see
ahead,
some
Adrian.
you'll see some other views that will show that more clearly.
Adrian, carry
Unfortunately,
on.
a pie chart of 100% doesn't show all of the numbers in one thing.
Okay.
It is an area that we need to focus on because it is a large sector of emissions and it is not going down. And so it will continue to increase in terms of its percentage of the problem as long as it's not going down and everything else is.
Right, right. Okay.
So wanted to show a few looks at some of the kind of specific sectors. So building energy, again, you can see that electricity is almost nothing on this chart. We are, because of some of the privacy rules around electricity, not getting and haven't been getting for a number of years, in fact, PG&E electricity information, because we have so few customers that are still on PG&E and not PCE. So we're assuming that those emissions are very small anyway, and just not going to worry about the fact that we can't get that data because of data access limitations. Really, the story here is that natural gas use, and especially non-residential natural gas use, is large and growing in absolute terms and in relative terms. And then when you add the natural gas leakage that occurs both at the end use and upstream attributable to those uses, it is a pretty significant portion of our picture, basically transportation and then natural gas use in buildings. Yeah, Glenn.
Sorry to ask you to go back to the previous slide for a minute, but looking at transportation emissions, Brisbane has a very high rate of electric car ownership.
Mhm.
Is that accounted for at all, or do they calculate transportation emissions simply by inventorying the number of vehicles and doing some kind of average?
I'm going to have to ask Emily to step in to talk more about the methodology. I know there is, like regional modeling, but to what extent it takes into account the, local percentage of electric vehicles, I'm not sure. Emily?
Because we don't really know how we are doing unless that's taken into account.
Yeah, Emily, can you speak more to how the transportation modeling is done and how it includes or doesn't electric vehicle?
Yes, thanks, Adrian. So electric vehicles are taken into account in Brisbane's community inventory. So electric vehicles are estimated by a state model, and we apply that the share of electric vehicles from the state model, which it's done at the county level. So it's actually, we get that information for all of San Mateo County and we apply it to Brisbane's VMT. So the only emissions that are associated with electric vehicles in Brisbane are actually just the emissions from the electricity use of those estimated vehicles.
Thank you. Just wondering though, I mean, as I said, when we're trying to figure out what our own emissions are as a city, I'm not sure the statewide model even applies. In Brisbane, we have a really high rate of electric car ownership, and it would be, I realize this is pretty fine-grained, but cities, it seems to me, are going to need to know some of this if they're,
So,
go ahead.
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I think there's a little bit of a delay on my end. You can finish.
No, I did. I pretty much asked the question. Is there going to be any attempt to localize this data more so that it reflects what's really on the ground rather than this is a statewide model and, you know, Brisbane has so many people and so many cars and that's our emissions? Because that's
So
the
the
way this seems to work.
Yeah. So the state model, it uses data that's broken down that's specific to each county. So obviously for Brisbane, it's using data for San Mateo County. And the reason we use this data for each jurisdiction, as in Brisbane, is because, as Adrian said earlier, the emissions from vehicle miles traveled is not just coming from the vehicles that are registered or owned within Brisbane. It's also coming from the vehicles that are entering Brisbane and leaving Brisbane. So that's why we still use the county level for this data.
Okay.
If Brisbane, there are still separate data sources that Brisbane can use to get an idea of EVs that are registered within the city. That would be DMV data, which is also on the California Air Resources Board's, it's called the MFAC website. There's DMV data and EV registration data there for Brisbane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Did you want to go forward, Adrian?
Yeah, so I think I had basically said everything I needed to say about the building energy side. The next thing was actually about transportation, fits in nicely there. And this was just a breakdown of the traffic by basically commercial vehicles versus passenger vehicles. And then you can see electric vehicles, which are, you know, virtually zero. You know what? I meant to change the order of this. I wanted to show this first, and then I'll show you the numbers. So this was what I was alluding to, another way to look at it. There's a lot of categories here. They are all stacked up with the legend bottom to top. And you can see, you know, the sectors that are in the various shades of red in the left 2005 bar. Those are the electricity emissions that are, you know, basically impossible to see by the time you get to 2021. You can see the green that is relatively consistent size, but growing proportion. And then a lot of other categories that are pretty similar, haven't necessarily changed a whole lot. And the darker blue, that's your non-residential natural gas, which is a growing portion. So the numbers that go along with that are here, if you'd like to see it more in this format. So again, that kind of natural gas use in buildings, which is primarily in the non-residential sector, is growing. Electricity is dropped dramatically. Stationary sources is low, but has grown a little bit. On-road travel, you know, kind of bumped around a little bit, but relatively consistent in that 38 to 40,000 range. And then everything else relatively consistent there. So while back in 2017, or with that 2017 inventory, we thought we had reduced emissions over 20%, it now looks like we haven't. with all of these changes, it adds up to only being a 13.66% reduction at this point in time from the new 2005 baseline to 2021.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Now that we're looking at the actual numbers, 38, 923 in 2005, up to 40, 479 2019, and a small drop back to 38, 607 in 2021. Are these real numbers, or these model numbers, or what are they? Because 2021 should have had a precipitous drop over 2019 if these were real numbers, because in 2021 we were still in the throes of COVID. Most people were not commuting, they were working from home, and to have such a small drop during such a different event and the effect that it had on vehicle miles traveled, I'm surprised. So I just want to know the source of the data. Is it real, or is it modeled, or is it, I mean, what is it? How did we get to that number? Because it just doesn't pass the sniff test for me.
Glenn, were you wanting to comment on that, or should I turn to
Yeah,
Emily?
just a
and come back?
suggestion that a lot of people quit using public transportation during the pandemic. So there may have been fewer people driving, but they were driving instead of being on BART or Muni or Caltrain.
Right.
It went through the floor.
Exactly. No one took that anymore.
Emily, did you have anything else
Good point.
that you could add to that?
Yes, so that is true. One of the things we did see in real data is that public transportation use did drop. Another thing we saw during COVID is that commercial VMT increased. You can think of that as things such as Amazon and online orders. People were not leaving their houses as much, so that commercial vehicle miles traveled did increase. But when we are looking at this data for Brisbane, this is still you're correct, this is based off of modeled vehicle miles traveled. It's from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's regional travel demand model. So this is a regional model for the Bay Area, and it is updated every few years. So it is not necessarily a model that would capture that year-to-year change, for example, that we saw from COVID.
So I have a question. Our baseline is measured off of 2017 data from the prior slide. Is that correct?
2005.
2005.
Yes.
Is there any efforts in getting up-to-date data so we could change that baseline? Because how do you know if you're doing good or not if you're being measured against 2005 data? Right?
So the baseline is 2005, as
Right.
in here's where you're starting at 2005 levels of emissions. We have, as you can see on your screen, inventories for the 2019 and 2021 years. Those are data from those years. So we're comparing those years to 2005.
2005.
It's not that we don't have newer data. We do. This is the new data that I'm presenting
Is
here.
21 the most recent?
Yes.
And how long does it take to compile? I mean, why can't we see 22, 23 data?
It takes a very long time for a lot of this data to become available. Emissions factors from utilities generally take, I think, well over a year to come out. All of these transportation models, collecting this data is no small feat. I'm very grateful for the County RICAPS program for doing this for us, and for RINCON for doing it for us, and being willing to be here to help us present it. It takes a very long time to get this all together.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I know it's very granular. I just want not to extend this any further, because I think you really did a great job putting it out there, but I wonder what the population was in 2005, and if I wonder I'm going to guess we're a little bit bigger now. Maybe we're doing better relatively than we were in 2005. Maybe there's several hundred more people living here than there were in 2005. I don't know.
I mean, probably some of the folks on the committee could speak to this better than I could. It's gone up some, but not a huge amount.
Yeah, the Ridge.
Finished being built out.
Yeah, so we might be doing better than it looks,
Yeah,
because it's not
that's-
the same. It's a larger amount of people generating less. So it may be better news than it looks like, you know?
Yeah,
lot of new commercial too.
unfortunately,
No.
we don't look at it in terms of per capita. I wish we did,
No,
because that would be a helpful way to look at it.
trying to find a sunny aspect.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Adrian. Did I cut you off? I'm sorry. Do you have more?
No, I think that was, I already covered this. Oh,
Uh-oh.
I did have one more side. Sorry. I
Yes,
think
yes.
this is the last one. So this is just, I went back and looked at our climate emergency declaration and those targets with these new actual numbers and baseline. And you can see that that yellow line is very, very steep. And we're already a couple of years into that in reality. So hitting that 66% reduction in 6 years is very daunting. I don't have a whole lot more to say about that, but we've got work to do.
Yes.
And that is the end. So if there are no other questions, I'm happy to.
I guess one final question, because I'm Mr. Move Along, but so when you entered the data there, just on your bar graphs with natural gas and what was lost in leakage, it looked, when I used my pen to calculate it, it looked like about a quarter of the gas used was actually going away as leakage. And so folks that are against moving away from gas, it's like there's whatever your stove uses plus 25% more that leaks away if the bar graph shows it.
Yeah, if I'm looking at those specific numbers, that's probably pretty close to right. Emily, do you happen to know that figure off the top of your head or ballpark?
Yeah, I can say after looking across a lot of different inventories across the county and honestly across the state, natural gas leakage emissions tends to be around 20% of total natural gas emissions. And that makes sense when you think about the fact that natural gas that does make it to its end uses and gets combusted, gets converted from methane to CO2, which has a much lower global warming potential or a lower amount of emissions. The natural gas that gets leaked and doesn't end up being combusted gets leaked as methane, which we know is a much stronger global warmer than CO2. So that's why, even though it's only a small amount of the natural gas that gets leaked, it has a much larger impact on emissions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think a liter for every 5 liters is a lot. I think it's a lot.
It's a pretty high percentage. Thanks for noting that. I will also note that I got a note from Anthony Walker asking about or commenting about the 0.19% electricity emissions being an exciting milestone, and important to call out folks that still want to claim the grid is just as dirty. At least here where we live, it's really not anymore.
Yay.
So he asked if I could speak to what we can chalk that remaining 0.19% up to. And I will say that the grid does still have some level of emissions. If you think about it, we are still working on getting renewables and backup power, battery storage. So different times of the day, the emissions intensity of the grid is very different. If you're using energy in the middle of the day in April, it's probably 100% renewable. If you're using, electricity in the middle of the night or, in the winter, it may be a little bit dirtier. So that's where that small residual is really coming from. We do also still have a couple of customers on PG&E or direct access. So I believe there might be a little bit coming from that, but it's really a vanishingly small number and going down all the time.
Thank you.
He had one other bit also. This would seem to make locally installed solar much less meaningful as a method to green the grid, but much more important as a complement to electrification and resiliency generally. I'd be curious to know how you were thinking about that. And yes, agreed. At this point in time, adding solar without adding battery storage is not necessarily that big of a benefit. One thing that is a challenge now that we've got these upstream electricity emissions included is that we don't have good localized data on that. So it would be very hard for us to say, oh, we've got more solar, so we're not using that transmission and distribution system as much so that we can push that number down. But, you know, maybe we'll get there. So that's really where the benefit is coming in on like less on the transmission and distribution side. And if you have storage paired with it so that you can make it through the evening peak after the solar, you know, dies off, or through the overnight hours, using that clean energy instead of using the grid at those times when there's less clean energy on the grid. So that's how I'm thinking about that.
Thanks, Adrian. Okay, we are, a hand is raised, online or here online?
Online, Chris Florkowski.
Yes.
Hi there. First of all, this presentation, it was not in the agenda packet, so I hope it'll be available to us. The VMT is going to go up as Sierra Point employee population expands. And it just points to the fact that we have very, very few transportation options. Electric vehicles notwithstanding, those VMT numbers are entirely believable to me. I agree with Jason. I know it's not a factor, but just to understand the data on slide 18 would benefit from showing both the population and the employee population, residential and the employee population, because both of those impact the VMT. And yeah, in 2021, the comment was already made that those numbers were that way because people were tended to drive solo. But I do think, I don't know, we don't have a Department of Transportation in Brisbane. I understand why we don't, but collaborating more with the other cities that were, South San Francisco has introduced a shuttle service that runs throughout the day, not just in the morning and the evening. If there's some way that we could be working with them, could we be talking to commute.org? Some way to make these transportation options, the few that we have, a little bit more available to residents and employees. Thank you.
Good idea.
Good idea, thank you. Okay, we are 53 minutes into my aspiration of a 90-minute meeting. So the next item on our agenda would be the consider a recommendation to City Council regarding the Brisbane Acres rezoning. I happen to know two members of the committee met and got right to it with some penmanship and wordsmanship. And Michelle, would you like to share? Can we move in that direction, Adrian? Have Michelle share what was crafted with the letter?
Sure.
Yes.
So Mary and I worked on the first draft together, and then Jason added some polish to it, and this is the letter that we'd like to present to the city, have the OSEC committee approve and present to the City Council. Dear City Council, open space has always had a significant role in the life of the Brisbane community. Residents, workers, and visitors have long recognized the city's unique geography and character with its dramatic location sheltered by the flanks of San Bruno Mountain and extending along the San Francisco Bay's shoreline. The Open Space and Ecology Committee was formed in 2001 to take active steps to do more than simply appreciate nature, but to work to permanently protect nature and form a sustainable relationship between the mountain, the bay, and the city. The upcoming decision to include the Brisbane Acres to satisfy rezoning for SB 9 must be reconsidered. The Brisbane Acres are primarily wildland habitat. While it may seem feasible to develop up to 4 housing units per acre parcel, isn't reasonable. The Brisbane Acres are extremely susceptible to wildfire with very limited access for emergency workers and their vehicles. A fire could quickly spread to all of Brisbane. Additional housing in this interface zone will likely increase homeowners' insurance for all of Brisbane. The Brisbane Acres, many of which are extremely steep, has a shallow soil structure and a history of slope instability. This poor slope stability and slide potential can severely impact all downhill structures, especially during heavy rain periods. Publicly maintained access ways to the Brisbane Acres are currently substandard and inadequate to safely handle current access. The cost to our city to provide basic infrastructure access, including water, sewer, roadways, and services such as fire and police, will present an ongoing monetary burden that will not be recoverable by development fees. While our state government is demanding more housing, this development will only serve the highest echelons and do nothing to address the needs of moderate to low-income housing. Any further development of the Brisbane Acres will forever change the face of Brisbane and the fate of San Bruno Mountain. As a community, we need to fight back against the state of California mandates of SB 9 and protect Brisbane and our open space. Respectfully, the Open Space and Ecology Committee.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, Mary, for being so much a part of that, the two of you. What would the next move be to invite discussion? Glenn, did you?
Discussion. First of all, it's a really good letter. Thank you for drafting it. There are a couple things I think could be added. One of them is a bullet point on biodiversity. We have species that are found nowhere else. The whole world is facing what's called the 6th grade extinction. The primary cause of species extinction is habitat loss. So you could put all those three things in one bullet point.
We did have that in there, and we opted to make it a shorter letter because not everyone understands that for every 10% of habitat loss, the species viability is reduced by 50%. And those numbers were calculated by Dr. E.O. Wilson, who's one of the greatest biodiversity experts in the world. But I think that we made a conscious decision not to make the letter that long and intense. I think everyone has had a long history of knowing how important the mountain is, and to some people that doesn't matter.
I think I would agree, and that sometimes folks want to make fun of us, and the thing is they'll bring out the butterflies to our derision, like, oh yeah, this is gonna save the butterflies, ha ha ha. I think appealing to human concerns, even though I am so with you, Glenn, I am so with you.
We actually wrote that and then took it out. But was there other points?
Yeah, the other thing, and it might be hard to say this briefly, but you talked about the public access to the acres themselves, but if there are people in the acres, it also affects the streets downhill from the acres.
Oh, yes, that's what we're...
them too, and they're not safe already, so I don't know if you could find a brief way to put that in, it might be a good idea.
In that point, when we talked about that...
The infrastructure.
Publicly maintained access ways to the Brisbane Acres are currently substandard and inadequate to safely handle current access. That includes roads like Glen Parkway and lower down. I didn't want to get into naming streets because it also affects Annis Road and Humboldt Road and Sierra Point Road and San Bruno Avenue. So it's all of it. It's not just one little section. It's everything. Yeah. Beatrice, all of that. So we hoped that we had addressed that. And the other thing about, we're hoping that this gets accepted as is because the meeting is on September 5th. Yeah. And we'd like to get this we have to have approval tonight to be able to get it to the council at that time. But we can speak to these issues during the meeting.
During the meeting,
yeah. Is there another thing that we should, because I'm making notes of what I want to say during the meeting based on what you're saying as well.
So I believe we've had letters in committee before where we made a slight modification and then approved it with a slight modification. I might tag with Glenn here, that third bullet, the adding a clause at the end of it to say much less additional traffic associated with this development. So it's substandard and inadequate as is right now, and then they're talking about putting more cars on it. So that would be my suggestion there.
Isn't that what we're saying, though?
Yeah,
Right?
isn't that what we're
current-
saying?
Our current infrastructure is not great,
Substandard and
and
inadequate. Yeah.
it's going to be worse if development
You
moves
actually,
ahead.
you don't quite get there.
Yeah, you don't
Okay.
quite make that
That
leap.
sentence
Just-
doesn't
Okay.
just that
quite
little
get there.
bit,
It's
like-
really
Yeah.
close.
Okay.
You know, just comma, much less with the additional,
With-
Oh, I
with
see.
much
yeah.
less
yeah,
with the
it just
additional
finishes
development.
Additional,
The thought you've
yeah,
set
got
it
it,
up
got
there,
it,
which
yeah.
is, and just add all the extra, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
a total mess. And, yes, Glenn?
So maybe could we just add any, to the second of the last sentence, any further development of the Brisbane Acres will forever change the face of Brisbane and the fate of San Bruno
Wait,
Mountain.
you want to add
And
what?
its species.
What? Wait,
Say again?
where?
Because I think I agree.
Yeah.
Could you say it again?
Second to the last sentence,
Yeah,
Any further development at the end?
where we're talking
Yeah.
about the fate of San Bruno Mountain and its rare and unique species. How about that?
Oh, okay,
And it's
rare
rare
and
and
unique
unique.
species, yeah.
everyone in favor of that?
We are
Yeah.
the Open Space and Ecology Committee.
Sure.
I mean,
Rare and unique.
Species.
And I'd like to add the line, if you don't like the coyotes in town now, try taking away more of their territory and see how you feel.
Jason, I don't think you have time for
You're
sarcasm.
exactly
Yeah.
right.
Do you want to use it's rare and unique species or rare and unique habitat? Species?
I like species. Because it brings up the E.O. Wilson thing.
Okay.
I like
And then, can you go back to please 3.3?
that was
Pub-
Aaron's.
Yes, I know. Publicly maintained access ways to the Brisbane Acres are currently substandard and inadequate to safely handle current access, comma,
Correct, comma, much less additional,
Oh, that's good.
additional, I would say, traffic due to
development.
the new development.
Yeah.
but they'll say the new development's not a done deal yet, much less additional,
Due to increased development.
Increased development, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
additional.
Yeah.
Stress instead of traffic,
Sure,
stress.
yep.
Stress of additional development.
But is it stress or it's traffic? Because stress could be.
Capacity.
Capacity.
Much less additional
Capa-
capacity, much less additional stress of additional capacity. No,
I think you can
I
get
think
rid of
it's just
stress, just
development.
much less additional capacity associated with new development.
I think the much less is messing us up here.
Much less
much less,
the
yeah.
additional capacity, I think would
It's-
be helpful.
publicly maintained access ways to Brisbane Acres are currently substandard and inadequate to safely handle current access, much less additional,
Then,
How about burden?
much less the additional burden
Of new development.
of new development. Yes? Of new, much
Yes,
less the
I like
burden of
that.
new development.
Yes.
Yeah, we got there. All five of us, we made one sentence.
Hey,
Yes, yes.
It packs a punch.
yeah, so we'll have a
There's a point,
revised copy to you tomorrow if this gets approved by all of us.
This is a letter from OSEC. I would request that OSEC sends the letter to the city clerk, or city council? To the
Really?
city council or the city clerk, yes.
Say what?
Okay,
Yes, we have done this in the past. This is an OSEC initiated letter. Staff has not participated in this letter. This is your
Okay,
project.
Happy to do
You
that.
submit.
so OSEC will send it, and can the vice chair send it?
yep.
Yes, you do generally need to formally approve it. Usually it is sent by the chair. I don't know that that's a requirement. If
you
you
send it
guys
to me,
decide that
send it.
someone else is going to send it,
I
I
can-
assume that's,
It would be better if it came from the chair. So
Okay.
just send it to me.
Yep.
I'll send it to Ingrid.
Well,
And
I'm
can we have,
gonna give it to you with the corrections on it.
I'd like the digital form so I don't have to
No, no,
type that.
I'll type it then. I'll send it to you.
No, I mean,
No, I'll do it.
Okay.
I promise. Okay, I make a motion that we accept this letter as amended and send it to the city council from the Open Space and Ecology Committee. Is there a second?
And everyone understands the things we just made.
Oh, yes, with those
We're,
2.
we're all good. right?
As
Those
amended.
two
Yeah,
simple
as
things.
amended.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. You had your hand up. I'm so sorry. Go ahead. Was it too late?
I will pass. Sorry.
You retract? No. You pass, okay.
I'll pass.
Okay, I'd like to have a vote again. I want to put the coyote line in there. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. That brings us to the point of staff updates. Are there staff updates?
There are, but I didn't pull them up yet, so 1 second. Yes, go right ahead.
Hello, this is Alejandra Chase, the Sustainability Fellow for the City of Brisbane. Yes, can you hear me better? Oh, this is better, yes. So this is Alejandra Chase. I'm the Sustainability Fellow for the City of Brisbane. For those joining us online, I have an update for the Building Efficiency Program and what I have been working on in this last month. First, I want to start by saying that I identify a building that has been out of compliance with our benchmarking requirements for the last 3 years, and I helped this building owner get in compliance with the 3 years. So that's really exciting. And the next point on that, on the building efficiency, is that we submitted our state report for our benchmarking program. We had a little bit of back and forth with the CEC, and I think we finally got all the data cleaned up how they wanted it. I'm also continuing working with the buildings in Brisbane to identify their performance path for the beyond requirements. So I keep getting forms from them and questions about this program, and I'm just diligently answering all their questions and trying to help them with the process. And one last thing is that we have been working with Bob to create our GIS map for our city website. I think one last thing that I'm gonna say, and probably Adrian might wanna add to this, is that we had our Cal Recycle visit this week, or last week. And that is it for me.
Thank you.
I did have the Cow Recycle site visit on my list, so I will just add to the waste side of things that we also submitted our Cow Recycle electronic annual report at the end of July. That is also due on August 1st, so both that and the Building Efficiency Program have state reporting deadlines on August 1st. I have also been working on the response to the civil grand jury's report on compost, and that response will be on the city council's agenda for September 5th. Actually, Alejandra has been working with Teresa to organize a tour of Scavenger for our green team, and we have some additional spaces, just a handful, but if anybody is interested, we are going to be doing the tour on September 19th, which is a Thursday at 11:30 a.m. I know that's probably hard for the working folks here to join, but if anyone is available and wants to join, you can email preferably Alejandra to let her know, and she can get you set up with the waiver that you need to complete before we arrive on September 19th.
I would like to go.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Okay, we can coordinate.
Let's see, what else? We finally, after I think like 3 months, had our reporting for our fast charger here at City Hall, our grant reporting accepted, and they notified us that our grant funds for that project will finally be released. So, yay.
Yay.
They were very detailed, crossing every T and dotting every I. It was fun.
Can I ask a question about the chargers at the Mission Blue?
Sure.
I was recently there for a memorial service for Bob Wilson, and of course it was packed. And I parked in one of the EV spaces because it was empty, and I'm having trouble with my legs, so whatever. But I noticed they put up these signs of like, if you park your yada yada yada, you're going to get arrested and tow your car and all this. I didn't think we were going to do that at the Mission Blue because of the parking situation there. That if there was an event and someone wasn't charging their car, that those places could be used for regular parking. And I saw someone else who was older pass up another place to park. And so I was very surprised to see those signs because that was contrary to what we had discussed.
I think we had perhaps discussed that very early on and ultimately determined that it was not a best practice to allow people who are not in electric vehicles to be blocking EV
We
charging.
didn't discuss that in this meeting in
I'm
OSEC.
not sure that's an OSEC decision.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's move ahead, I think.
Okay.
Because otherwise, how can you have those two spaces if there's no indication that,
There's like 6 or 8 spaces there, and during a heavy event, for those spaces to go unused when there's no one there charging is really not right.
I get the point, but
Yeah.
maybe
That was very different than what we had discussed.
someone could cover them during those space, during
Or,
those things.
or put the word out to EV owners that if they go to Mission Blue, they should
Yeah,
charge there in order to save parking for other people.
yeah.
Yeah. So the Sun Shares program launches this Sunday, September 1st. If anybody is interested in going solar, it's a good time. They also have discounts on storage. So going back to our discussion earlier, you can do solar and storage. Take advantage of that discount and federal tax credits. This was actually at the top of my list, but because she talked about Cal Recycle, I went in the other direction. So exciting news, our PCE incentive and loan for the pool heating electrification were approved, and the CPUC gave conditional approval on our PG&E incentive. So we are working through some of the new service planning stuff with PG&E, but we have the funding that we had requested. We hope it is still enough. And as the project moves forward and we, kind of work through all the kinks and details, but some big hurdles. So very exciting.
Great job, thank you.
And then, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to, Jeremiah told me today, and I forgot to confirm when he actually said, but he did note that the REACH code that was approved by the City Council on July 18th that is on the California Energy Commission's agenda. I think he said for their October meeting, but don't know for sure if I am getting that right. So coming up in the next couple of months, the CEC will be looking at that. It does have to be approved by them to be official. And that's a subcommittee thing. Yeah, I think I'll save that for subcommittees.
Okay. Anything, Karen, or no? Good.
I only have some subcommittee
Okay.
updates.
All right, didn't mean to nag you, sorry.
No problem.
So I'll move on to subcommittee reports and reorganization. Okay.
I've just kind of been leaving that on there so that if we had something that we needed to adjust in light of the changes on the committee, we could, but I didn't expect we were actually doing any of the major reorganization this month. We'll wait until next month. We expect Anthony to be sworn in September 5th, I believe, still that's happening. So, so by next meeting, Anthony will be able to officially be on the committee and we can make those changes to the subcommittees. But if there's anything we need to adjust now, we can.
It's on the council agenda, a resolution to add those members. I don't know if they are being sworn in that day or another day. But
And if anyone at home is listening in halfway through this meeting, if they still care enough in our fine city, if you're still tuned in, maybe you should reach out to the city clerk, Ingrid, and see if there's you'd like to participate in the OSEC committee. Because if you've tuned in, it may show that you care a lot, and maybe you could talk to Ingrid about the empty spot on this committee. Is that an idea? That's an idea, right? So, subcommittee reports.
So I'm going to actually chime in because the other thing that I left off was related to this first subcommittee for events. So scavenger staff reached out to us about Day in the Park, and Alejandra and I met with Teresa and Frida on Friday. They are interested in participating, but don't have the availability on their staff side to host their own booth. So they asked about joining up with us. I thought we've done that in the past. I know that there has been an interest in focusing on litter, so I thought it was probably a great combination. We can focus on litter and waste and have scavenger materials at our booth. We discussed having some of the kind of common question, tricky issue items and a little kind of sorting game of where to put them. So things like your Amazon mailers and film plastics and compostable plastics and the things a lot of people get wrong, even if they are well-meaning and trying to do the right thing. So kind of focusing in on some of those items in a sorting game. And then also we are working on kind of fine-tuning some of the details of the trash grabber program and hoping to launch that at Day in the Park. So we would have some kits there for checkout, and looks like we might have an opening, but still have to work through some of the details of how it works to potentially have checkouts available through the library, through City Hall or other city facilities. So getting those kind of details ironed out. We discussed it at our green team meeting today and would have that going as well. So that's what we are thinking for Day in the Park, but obviously this is your booth. So want to hear what you think and if we should schedule a subcommittee meeting to work through those details. Happy to try to get that on the calendar sooner than later so we can work through any other issues there.
I definitely think it'd be good to have a subcommittee meeting just to make sure we have everything aligned, and hoping that all members of OSEC will take some booth time. And then again, I would request that we be adjacent to the Mountain Watch booth at the same time, especially since Frida is a board member. That would be helpful because we can combine forces and help make it a very attractive area to come to. But yeah, it sounds like a great idea. I love the trash sorting game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think the focus should be on reducing trash. So the grabber program fits perfectly. We don't have to spend too much time on it, given that we only have like a month. It's a month away. But we should have a short subcommittee meeting just to make sure we have everything in order.
Let's do it. Should try to full.
Oh, yeah. Well, do you want to?
I was just reviewing my notes from the meeting, and we also gonna have a table with some coloring to do for children that want to like hang out around and parents, so we can talk to them while their kids, just color and something like that.
Yeah, Scavenger has some handouts that are like coloring and word search and whatnot that are, recycling related. So we thought we'd go ahead and just have a few crayons there for that.
that's the other advantage to being next to Mountain Watch, because we're going to do some makerspace stuff appropriate for kids.
Yeah, it came up and I thought, well, somebody, maybe it was Frida, was talking about the makerspace event and, Scavenger had, or Mountain Watch had all these great activities. Like maybe we could do some of them. I'm like, well, probably Mountain Watch wants to do them themselves.
Well,
I'm going to guess.
This is where, yet again, it's a good idea for us to combine forces and draw the same crowd. And be there all together.
Yep.
So.
I did hear from Ricardo today that there are a lot of vendor booths. So it's sounding like it's going to be pretty full,
So,
but yeah.
Will
we
you
should be
join
able-
us for that? Adrian, do you want us to meet on? our own?
Yeah, I should join you. We can try to, maybe compare calendars before you leave tonight. It would be a faster way to get that scheduled, but otherwise I can send a doodle poll tomorrow or
And
something.
it can be virtual, or would it need to be?
Oh, shoot, this is a standing subcommittee. No, we have to meet in person and notice it.
Okay, all right, so then we'll talk before we go. Yeah, but I think we're all cool with the trash grabbers and trash and the good ideas. And thank you for looking out for us with the coloring.
Yeah.
Good. Education outreach, has there been any action there? I don't know why there would have been, but yeah, August.
No, we haven't had a subcommittee, but it's kind of combined with the trash grabber program, so we're covering that, and we'll,
Good.
yeah.
Building decarbonization, any action on that front, or? Becker, Ebel?
No, we haven't met. We had been talking about reach codes. That's a done thing. And we've got new emissions inventories now that give us a new perspective. So if folks are interested in meeting to talk about what's next, we could. But we might also consider just waiting until after we reorganize. This is a committee that Glenn's on. I don't know if that's something that
Open Space
somebody else will
Committee,
wanna
there
fill.
was a question in the air the last time that a couple of us on this panel were told we couldn't be part of that, and the question was going to be researched if we could or not, because we are not legislative and we are just advisory. Did we get an answer to that question?
Yeah, I read that email from the city attorney last time.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all good?
You can.
You can, okay,
Right.
I
great.
thought you were back
that's how
on.
I-
You
that's how I
wrote the letter
understood
with
it.
us.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know, I didn't see my name there, maybe I thought it was struck, so that's okay.
Sorry, I just didn't make that update to
Okay,
the
all right.
slides. I just go back and copy last month's slides.
That's
Yeah.
all
Sorry.
right, I didn't know, I didn't
The
know if it didn't
content
pass
w-
Congress. I
The
didn't know.
content was that you guys were not included in that restriction, but if anybody felt like it didn't pass the smell test, then they could self-recuse.
Got it, okay, got it. Thanks,
Okay,
Karen.
and so just to update where we're at, we worked on the letter, which we're gonna finalize it, and if you don't have it by noon tomorrow from me, you holler.
I forgot I have the digital, but I can do it. already
You
did?
sure?
Yeah, it's just edits, it's fine. I thought I was gonna have to type the whole thing. We're good,
No.
I got it.
Okay, and then the other thing is that we are reviewing the letter that we send to prospective sellers. And we had planned to do that. If you like, we can do it the same way we did this.
Okay.
Okay, and that'll be coming up shortly. Yeah, it got put aside because we did this instead.
Sure, yeah. Forward that to me when you
Yeah.
get done a draft.
Thank you, Crocker Trail Frog Habitat. I didn't go to anything.
Any updates with the owner?
Sorry, and I realized that we're trying to email subcommittees when we have an update, and I didn't do that, but I was asked to reach out directly, and I worked with our NIPD's regional compliance manager, who has to go to all the commercial sites and do certain inspections, and he said over there it's hard to find English speakers, so I had him go with me, and the manager was not there, but we were able to talk to him on the phone, and we set up a meeting with him, or I did, I asked for September 11th, and he's available noon or after, so I wanted to wait to confirm and see if one of you wanted to go to that meeting with him.
Look at the date.
Do you know what time it is, or?
Anytime afternoon, he's available.
Okay.
And what day of the week is September 11th?
It's a Wednesday,
Yeah.
looks.
I think that I can, but it would be also nice if you can too. Or if we
Yeah,
all
I'll try, but as long as someone from OSEC.
I need to look at my paper calendar at
Yeah.
home, but yeah.
Okay, so after,
Crocker,
okay.
Frog Habitat. And this is to meet with them to, because I'm new back on the committee.
Yeah.
And so,
This is to let them know what we want to do and allay any of their concerns about drainage, because I don't
Right.
think they would mind us working in the channel, but
Yeah.
they just want
But
to make sure that.
We did provide a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, so we're gonna go it didn't go that deep on the phone call. That's what's gonna happen at
Oh,
the.
okay.
And I have printed it out. I was gonna
Yeah.
show them.
Are we gonna invite Paul Buscal?
I mean, I was gonna do it, and I thought maybe one other person. I don't know if you think Paul's role in that would be significant in the concrete channel part.
Okay.
Do you guys see it? I mean, I do anticipate there were drainage problems, and we have not found a great solution. So they may want to talk about that further. You know, in the part that Paul is maintaining.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Okay.
I
don't
didn't
know.
want to gang up on the guy and have a bunch of us saying, "Oh,
Okay, no, that's fine,
if we're
because
just
we want
looking-
him to buy into it, so, yeah. Whatever you see appropriate, that's,
Yeah.
as far as attendance is concerned,
yeah." Let me think about inviting Paul or not, but
that's fine.
I'll
Okay.
email you guys and see if one of you can make it.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, invasive species. Since this is ad hoc, did we do our thing, or we still hawking?
We, it's happening. The code enforcement officer is responding to
Yeah.
any inquiries, and the city's trying to develop a plan to address their own. So if you guys want to do any particular outreach, we could meet about that, or if somebody wants to write something for the Star or anything like that.
I think what we talked about was a letter similar to what Dark Skies has, where, dear neighbor, you might not be aware of this new ordinance.
Right.
You've got to clear a 2-foot perimeter of your ivy or whatever.
Right.
Something pre-code enforcement.
Right.
Yeah. So we should schedule a meeting. Barbara's not here, so can we do a doodle poll for that one?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I just confused
Wait.
lines on the spreadsheet.
Barbara's not,
Let's
it's
wait
just
until we have
Jason
a,
and-
let's wait until we have a new member.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree, yes.
Yeah,
What you said, and when we have a new member.
you know,
Okay.
one thing too, though, if it would be really great to put an article in the Star or whatever the publication is to coincide with, taking an opportunity are we doing the dumpsters this year? Cleanup?
Oh, November?
Fantastic
cleanup?
idea.
Yeah, it's
Because that's
early
the
November.
perfect time to get
Right.
rid of all that
Right.
stuff.
Yep,
Right.
that's a really good idea.
Right, good idea. Nice. But again, when we have
Actually,
a new-
I think Glenn has already written most of that, because remember that really good preamble you wrote to the ordinance that we said, this is long for an ordinance? I think we can just copy that and make it a Star article. So we're halfway there. Yeah, of course I do.
Will you give
perfect.
us the rights on that verbiage? Yeah.
I hereby sign over the copyright.
All right,
So I think a meeting might be good, or maybe we can do it in email and at least get it started.
Okay. Okay.
Can I join that committee? The invasive species?
Okay, so we're at Dark Sky.
I don't have anything, and I'm wondering if we should move this to inactive, or if there's any further role
The one thing
for-
we were gonna do was write that, craft some neighborly letters.
Adrian already did that.
Oh, I didn't
And
see
we
them.
did, and we discussed it.
And we discussed it a couple times, and I forgot about it once. I'm going to say that you have put that forth before, and Barbara did not love that idea. So I think we should table it until when she's here for you to put that forth again.
Okay.
But I'm not against it at all.
I didn't
Okay.
see those. Did I miss that somehow?
They were an email.
It was an email, and hard copies were at the library for a little bit at least. I'm not
It was a
sure they're
very
still
busy
up.
time in the world, and I
Okay.
think there was a lot of stuff that got missed at about that time. So
Okay.
Okay, so that we'll circle back to that when Barbara's
Can
with
I
us.
have a
Go ahead.
comment on Dark Skies. Last meeting, we had someone in the audience. I know her, she lives in Brisbane. And so the residential lighting is a big thing for her. And so she had brought up an idea, but it was after the meeting, but it was a good idea. And she goes, oh, I'd be willing to sponsor a household. I would pay to have someone change their lights.
Oh.
And I thought that was a pretty good idea, because if you have someone that's driving you nuts, right? And maybe they just don't have the money to do it. And if you say, hey, listen, I'll go out and buy you the new lights, right? $50, $100. That may be something to consider. Just food for thought. We could talk about it at the next meeting, but I didn't want her idea to go by the wayside, because I thought it was a very good idea.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might even consider putting that at the bottom of the letter. It's like, check the box. I'd consider helping you offset some of the costs of a new fixture.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
totally.
Good idea.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. Tree issues. Michelle, you have any issues with trees?
I just resent the email that you guys asked for last month, so the way I see it, the committee tell me, I guess we need to reorganize that one too, or see if anyone else wants to join, is that we were looking at what with the ordinance, we want to kind of open the discussion again with the planning department staff. And then the other piece of that we're still working on the staff level is the inventory that we had done and the canopy plan and all of that. And they've given us a bunch of data, and they gave us some time with that software, and we're trying to migrate it to GIS so that we don't have to pay to have that data in perpetuity. And then that'll be something we can present. So those two pieces are creeping forward.
Sorry. Yeah. It's still on, so we're moving forward. And
And is everybody looking at those old meetings to finalize? The point was, there were a few things that the subcommittee isn't thrilled about that are results of the ordinance, but we did have a small part in crafting it, so we want to have a really, educated kind of
right.
way to
And
come
I
back.
wasn't on the tree committee. I wasn't on that committee when they did that crafting. So it was really Barbara, who is very,
Was hands-on with it.
Yeah.
I missed a hand over here, speaking of hands, Glenn.
So I'm not sure that park trees are even in the remit of the tree committee, but I just have a comment, which is that the 3 new little conifers in the corner of the park where the festival tree was are looking kind of peaked. It's a tree issue. It may not be our tree issue, but it's a tree issue.
Good to know, those are the future festival trees, so I can pass that on.
Okay,
It looks sad.
some things. Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more things change, the more they stay the same. That was French.
Exactly.
Any other tree issues? Any Bayland specific issues?
Can I also,
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry, can I also join that committee? The 3 issues, and so I want to be on that one, and the invasive species when you guys meet.
I'm not understanding. What was the comment? I'm sorry.
that's really yeah.
We're all cool with that. Yeah.
Good. So I'm assuming no one met on the Bayland specific plans, correct? Jump in if I'm wrong. So that would take us to the calendar items.
What about any news on the quarry development EIR? No?
I don't have any news about either of them with specific timelines, but I do think if you haven't started reading your Baylands materials, you may want to get on that, because I haven't heard that the, later this year is no longer this year either. So,
Yeah.
There's only so many months left.
For the Baylands or no, for the
So
quarry?
so I'm a little confused. So the comments that we provided last time for the Baylands, right, the draft EIR, have they been incorporated into the latest draft? Or,
Oh, so, let me see if I can do this. I may or not get it right.
Go for it.
OSEC provided comments
Right.
to the,
draft?
to the people doing the EIR.
Okay,
Because they are required to answer every comment.
Correct.
So everything we put forth, they now have to consider in the EIR, even if they say this isn't actually part of the EIR.
Correct.
But that is only the specific plan. I believe there's still work to be done that's separate from the EIR.
Yes, so you got it
Okay.
basically correct. You didn't provide comments on the EIR, you provided comments on the notice of preparation of the EIR. What is available for your review is not the EIR, that is not yet been released. It is the developer's specific plan proposal. That is, good context for what is being studied in the EIR.
Okay.
So kind of your background reading before the big EIR document comes out, you may want to get
And
it
that
done
document
first.
sits on the website?
The specific plan?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so. And many of you got
I have a
hard
full hard
copy
copy.
chapters.
Okay. Oh,
I
yeah,
remember
okay, yeah, I still have
we
all
got
that.
you.
Okay.
And I know exactly where it is,
Okay.
surprisingly. I haven't really read it, but
Amazing.
it's so big, it's hard to miss.
Calendar items. What's calendarized for us here?
Coastal Cleanup Day, September 21st, and then Day in the Park, October 5th.
Oh my God, it's coming up
So events coming up. And then, as we had last month, we've got a few potential meeting agenda topics that we are, bringing up as they are ready. So,
When
yeah, you can see that there.
when is Ecology, South San Francisco Scavengers presenting to us?
We haven't scheduled it yet. So sometime either in September, October, or in generally we have a combined meeting in November and December, which we may want to talk next month about when we would like to schedule that, because I believe as it would generally fall, it's like the night before Thanksgiving all the time in
Yeah.
November. So
So is it possible for our September meeting that they could present that?
I can ask.
Because recently there's been discussion about different recycling and the bins, and people are now doubting again the separation of,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
and I've mentioned on social media and on Facebook, residents of Brisbane, a couple of times of like, please come to the OSEC meeting when Teresa is here, and she can answer your questions directly.
Mhm.
So September, October would be really good.
Yeah.
People do
Okay.
have questions, and I try to answer them, but I don't know the answer to everything.
We'll
Yeah.
answer them in the park. in October.
Yeah, we'll also answer them.
We
in
will
the
be,
park.
and with some support for a little while at least, with Scavenger at Day in the Park to answer those questions because we know they're coming up. And yeah, we can see which meeting works best with their schedule, September, October, or if need be, that last meeting of the year. Hopefully not, but sometime sooner than later. They will be here, and I will just plug again, Scavenger has a Sort Smart feature on their website that is really handy. If you don't know where something goes, check that out. And I'm sure if you still can't figure it out, if you called Scavenger, probably you'd get to Teresa or Frida, and they would be happy to answer your questions.
I've
or-
also recommended that.
Yeah. Yep. They are there for answering all of our questions. Yeah, Glenn.
This just popped into my head and it's sort of out of turn, but I was looking at the Brisbane Facebook page today and there's
You're out of turn, Glenn.
really a lot of distress about this coyote around town that is sick. It apparently has been wounded and has mange.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do about that at Day of the Park, but I wonder if something about coyotes might be helpful to people because there's a lot of concern about them in general.
It's been in the blast. They just put it up, I think it was just last week.
Okay, I haven't been
I
tracking
did
the
call
blast,
a county animal because I had a contractor come up and the contractor was convinced that this animal had rabies. Which 90% sure it did not. It definitely has mange, because I know what that looks like. But the animal control or welfare said, unless I had eyes on it that moment, they were not going to send anybody, because I saw it and it moved off. And so, yeah, but it was, somebody can back me up. It was just this week, right, on coyote, and dealing with them, not feeding them,
I don't think it can be repeated too often because apparently
right.
people still are feeding them.
Oh, God.
And the other thing is there is a coyote meeting
Yes.
here at City Hall on September 3rd, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull up the details so I could confirm and show them on screen. It is
Yes.
September 3rd. In the blast
Yes.
Yeah.
today.
There we go.
Oh, good.
Urban Coyote Workshop, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2 to 3 p.m. at the City Hall Community Meeting Room. That's right here.
Oh, it's a cute one here on the right. That's really nice. Really
So,
is.
yeah.
I have no problem.
I have been participating heavily in the coyote discussions, trying to, be the voice of reason. And I'm just going to say this again in public. The way that we're going to solve it is to continue to haze them in areas they shouldn't be, like central Brisbane, and do not feed them. Make them feel uncomfortable here, and they will adjust their own population. One of the reasons we're having such an influx of them right now is a combination of they kind of got used to coming here more during COVID when more people weren't out. And then we had major habitat loss for them with the landslides in Allen Buckeye Canyon, combined with people making food available to them here. And we need to correct our behavior so that they can adjust their behavior. They're a top level predator and they can control the size of their litters based on, and that's the only way you're going to get rid of them or have them move back. Because if you try to kill them or relocate them, it's like you have a big lake and you want to take some water out and more water just fills it. So if you try eliminating them that way, it won't work. More will just come and take their place because it's a territory thing. And that's dealing with a top line predator is different than dealing with,
Mice.
cats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just two more really quick things. One, people should keep their cats inside.
Yes.
Hell yes.
They're
Yes.
big food source. And secondly, I did look at the SPCA website this afternoon, read their whole section on wild animals. And if somebody wants to take on the job of trapping that mangy coyote, you can take it in a cage to their wildlife care facility, which is down in Burlingame. But you can't touch the coyote. Wear gloves because rabies.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, chair and committee member matters. I cannot be here next month, the 25th, so I'm hoping that you can be. Yes, that would be great. I'll be on stage with Legally Blonde, performing as Professor Winthrop at Harvard University.
That's so
Yes,
exciting.
I was supposed to be there tonight, but I said I could not possibly miss it
Okay.
here. So any other committee member matters?
I also will have a problem being here next month. I could do it if absolutely necessary, but it's going to be painful.
So
Should we change the date of the meeting?
is that possible? Because if it's iffy that Anthony is with us, we may not have a quorum here. If I'm out, Glenn is out, Sean is gone.
And Barbara's, we don't know.
Or do we do we do September as the month that we skip because we usually skipped in November, December.
It's challenging to reschedule because we got to find a night that this room is available,
Right.
and we have to see if MCTV can also be here.
Right. What's defines a quorum? 4?
Well, it depends how many members we have.
That's what I mean.
Your
6?
committee is 6.
Yes.
So
So you
4
would
is a
have to
quorum.
have 4. So
Everyone except the 2 that have already said they can't be.
Pardon?
Everyone except the 2 that have just said they can't be here will have to be present.
Right.
I can show up if necessary. I'll just be on travel and the time change is going to make my next day hurt and that's the day I have to be on. But if it If it takes quorum, I will be here. If it means you guys have quorum, I will join remotely.
We can check with Anthony about his availability, unless he's available to speak to that at this moment. But we could certainly circle back if we need to about
It's not-
having quorum or
It
not.
would be whether he's approved, right, for the, which we
Right,
expect.
so the September 5th is the council meeting. They will be approving the resolution appointing, and then even if he is not sworn in that day, my understanding is he could be sworn in the office at any time after that resolution is approved. So we would have, almost 3 weeks to get that done. Yes.
So if we had Anthony, Barbara, Michelle, and Mary, then we would have a quorum.
Yeah, we would need to confirm with Barbara. Anthony, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, just wanted to confirm I am planning to be there on the 5th and should be available for the meeting.
Yeah.
I mean for the council meeting, for the
Yeah.
swearing in on the 5th.
What about September 25th?
Yeah, should also be available for that.
Great, great.
Excellent. Is there a possibility of changing the date of the meeting or no?
It would be challenging because don't we have something in here every Wednesday now?
So if we could find out from Barbara if she's able to make it, and we have an offer, it's a hugely generous one from you, that if Barbara can't, Erin can, we're okay. And we don't have to do that brain damage of changing the room.
Yeah.
Sorry, my old boss used to say that, brain damage.
Yeah,
But
we
is-
will check into that. Thank you for the advance warning, so we have some time to sort it out. But
Thank you,
we'll check into that.
MCTV had a lot of Friday nights available. I said no. That we had to change complete streets also.
Oh, Friday night with you guys. How fun. We
Exactly.
can go to the inn afterwards.
Another option is September has 5 Mondays.
Does it?
Oh, yes, it does.
Yeah, there's typically no show on a Monday, so I could,
Well, tentatively, it would be September 25th, but if we,
came on the 23rd, I could come. That wouldn't be a problem for me then.
I can't be there on that Monday either. I shouldn't have said anything.
But I can.
Oh, but Jason can.
I don't love making the switch to Monday, but we can sort it out if we need to.
So if there's no Barbara, I could come on Monday, if the room was available on Monday, and if Michelle and Mary Michelle, Mary, and Anthony could come on Monday.
We'll work it out.
Okay, okay, good, sorry.
okay.
Now I'm the one slowing things down. Next meeting is
To be
either-
determined.
To be determined.
And I didn't update the slide anyway, so let's
Wow,
just skip
wow.
right through that
Go-
flow.
I want to look at that one again. Oh, wow. Okay, great. Okay. And so now it's time for me to say, we're really going to miss you, Glenn. Thank you very much.
Oh,
for
God,
your
yeah.
service.
Thank you,
Thank
Glenn.
I'm going to miss you guys too. I've
Thank you.
really enjoyed being on this committee
Well, you worked hard.
and I've learned a lot.
You did stuff and you taught a lot. So thank
Yeah.
you.
How many years, Glenn?
I'm not even sure anymore. I think it's like 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
A long time.
It's been a minute.
Well done. Wow. Wow.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank
Got to
you,
leave
Glenn.
before they give me tenure. My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, side question. What is this thing that fell on my feet?
Oh, my God. It went with a huge thud.
Meeting adjourned.
We already did that.
City attorney. We need to speak to the city attorney.
What is
What is it? It's Colleen's back brace.
It magnets to the wall. Weird. Oh, here's another one.
Is that to put your feet on?